UFC Fight Night Aspinall versus Tybura, full card reaction, results, and fight to make next. I'm gonna give all of that in today's video. Aspinall going out there and just starching Marcin Tybura, showing some good movement on the feet, landing with some speed and intensity with his strikes. And Marcin Tybura really was not able to get anything off on the feet because of how fast and elusive that Tom Aspinall was able to be in terms of the strike. And if we're looking at the head strikes landed, Tybura landed 2 when Aspinall was coming in, but Aspinall kept landing strikes at range, hurt him on the feet, got that knockdown, I believe, with that elbow, a few ground and pound shots, and it was it. There was no leg kicking, there was no real body shots from Tom Aspinall. Straight to the head, and he put him away. Like most opponents that he fights, he puts them away early, round 1 knockout wins on guys like Sergey Spivak, Alan Baudot, and Jake Collier, all in 1 or 2 minutes. This one was pretty much the exact same thing in 1 minute and 13 seconds. The Andrei Arlovski one somehow lasted to the second round. Obviously, he had that weird knee injury in the last one at Curtis Blades, but now he's right in that kind of title contention of the heavyweight division, and he called out the winner of Ciryl Gane, Sergey Spivak, at UFC France later this year. And this is the number 2 heavyweight in the world in Ciryl Gane, as well as Sergey Spivak at number 8. Tom Aspinall has already beaten Sergey Spivak, but if Sergey wins, that'll actually put him a higher ranked than Tom Aspinall. So Tom's saying, I would like the winner of Sergey and Ciryl Gane. If I win that one, I want Jon Jones. If I win that one, even if Jon Jones retires, I want to kind of stake my claim for that vacant title shot. And I think that's the perfect call out to make inside of the heavyweight division. Is that. I mean, that's exactly what I said should happen next, is him versus the winner of Ciryl Gane and Sergey Spivak. Personally, I'm going to actually go Sergey Spivak to win that fight, but it comes down to how much Ciryl Gane is training with the wrestling and with the grappling. I'm hoping that Ciryl Gane wins because I don't want a rematch with Sergey Spivak and Tom Aspinall. Obviously, a Ciryl Gane, Tom Aspinall main event, number 1 contender fight. Winner gets Sergey Pavlovich for the vacant belt, or, I mean, maybe if the UFC somehow wants to kind of skip Tom Aspinall right over Sergey Pavlovich and give him the shot, there's a lot of things you could do there. And Marcin Tybura obviously got kind of destroyed in that fight like most of us were expecting, but he is still a top 10 heavyweight. Number 10 right there. He's not going to go up in the rankings. And Jairzinho Rozenstruik is there. That is true. But he is coming off a loss to Jailton Almeida, lost to Alexander Volkov, Curtis Blades, beat Augusto Sakai and Chris Dawkins, but they are ranked below him. That was one person that a lot of people were saying, why don't we just do Jairzinho versus Marcin? He's coming off a loss. He shouldn't really be going up in the rankings too much after that. So we got a UFC 291 fight coming up with Marcos Rogerio de Lima taking on the man, the myth, the legend in Derek Lewis. I do believe this is going to be a 50-50 fight. If Marcos goes out there and finishes Derek Lewis, give him a shot inside of that top 10, because we've seen guys like Tuivasa win, Pavlovich win, and Spivak win, and they've all entered the top 10 after that. And if Lewis wins, puts him right back in the mix, and a fight with Marcin Tybura is actually very winnable for Derek Lewis to get right back on his winning ways in the heavyweight division. So that is what I do. Between them at heavyweight would be Marcin Tybura versus the winner of Derek Lewis and Marcos Rogerio de Lima. Co-main event, we had Molly McCann get kind of destroyed, if we're being honest here. Got taken down after landing a few decent strikes on the feet. We check out the UFC strikes that were landed at range on the feet. Molly McCann was actually losing in that case. She was getting hit to the head more, wasn't able to really land too many shots due to the height and the reach and the size of Julija Stoliarenko, and Julija was able to close that distance, land that takedown, and overall easily submit Molly McCann in that fight. And if we're honest here, Julija Stoliarenko just beat a top 25 girl in the women's flyweight division. The girl used to be a women's featherweight, went down the bantamweight, and now she's in the flyweight division. And that was such a dominant win in the flyweight division. I think this fight right here between Karine Silva and Marina Moroz, I think Julija Stoliarenko versus the winner, because right now, a win over Molly McCann, I don't think deserves you a top 15 fight yet. Then you gotta win one more after that, and Karine Silva is only 2-0 in the UFC. Marina Moroz is coming off a loss, so I'd say the winner of this fight wins one more fight, and that'll break them into the top 15 of women's flyweight. I'd really love to see a Karine Silva versus Julija Stoliarenko fight. It does sound like a lot of fun in terms of grappling and jiu-jitsu. And in terms of Molly McCann, again, she got kind of destroyed there, so we're going to have to pump the brakes a lot and go a lot further down in the rankings. Give her a winnable matchup, but one that I'd actually still favor her losing in terms of Veronica Hardy or Veronica Macedo, coming off a win over Juliana Miller in the UFC's flyweight division. Yet last UFC London card, they both bet on London cards a lot. Let's put them on the prelims of the next London card. That's 2 losses in a row for Molly. We got to pump those brakes. Give her a winnable fight, but one I still think she loses, but one that she could very well win. Molly McCann, Veronica Hardy, Veronica Macedo, however you want to say that name. Nathaniel Wood and Andre Filho. Now this was a fun fight. In the featherweight division, round 1, Nathaniel Wood dropped Andre Filho, ground and pounded him a little bit, and almost got that finish. Round 2, Filho did the same thing, got the back of Wood, ground and pounded, got on top of Wood, ground and pounded, won that round, and then Nathaniel Wood just sheerly out-volume and outstruck Filho in the 3rd round to win a very clear and concise 29-28 decision. And, after a win over a guy like Andre Filho, you gotta think about giving him a top 15 fight. But are we gonna do that yet? Not really. We're not thinking about top 15 just yet for Nathaniel Wood, as that was pretty close fight. He got rocked on the feet. We can't just throw him into the wolves of Alex Caceres, Edson Barbosa, Dan Ige, Mitchell, Sodiq. I personally believe he needs one more win outside of the top 15 against another guy right outside of the top 15. 3 wins in a row is very, very good. Jourdain, Charles Rosa, and Andre Filho. But I think one more win to really put a stamp on it, then I give him a shot inside of that top 15. And you're wondering, who do we give him? Who do we give him? Ladies and gentlemen, we got ourselves a banger of a co-main event of a UFC fight night. Nate Landwehr and Nathaniel Wood. Nate Landwehr is coming off a loss to Dan Ige, and that last fight was on a good win streak before that, and is a big test for a lot of the up-and-comers in the featherweight division. If he can get past Nathaniel, or if he can get past Nate Landwehr here, that puts him into the talks of getting inside of that top 15. If Nate Landwehr wins, I still think one more win outside of the top 15 against another up-and-comer, and if he wins that one, well, we can't deny him again, then maybe we'll start thinking about a Nate Landwehr back inside of the top 15 of the featherweight division. But either way, it's a very, very fun fight. Nathaniel Wood, Nate Landwehr, co-main events. For Andre Filho, again, it was a close fight. Round 1 and round 2, they were even, and then came into the round 3. He did get outstruck in that one, but man, he's fought the who's who of the featherweight division. And right now, we got to think about fun matchups and a fight to give an up-and-comer a step. Just threw up in my mouth a little bit. Damn. We got to think about giving an up-and-comer in the featherweight division a little bit of a step up. And one of those guys is going to be Fernando Padilla, who just came off a very solid knockout win on Julian Erosa in the featherweight division. for his UFC debut. You can't think about giving him top 15 guys next. But if you really want to see where guys are at in the featherweight division, you got to give them the Andre Fili test. And I think this would be a good fight, a very, very fun 3-round striking affair between Andre Fili and Fernando Padilla. Put it on that September 16th card where Valentina Shevchenko is fighting Alexa Grasso, considering Fernando Padilla is from Mexico. I think that would make a lot of sense. Next one, we do have Paul Craig and Andre Muniz. Round 1. They were kind of just technically striking, landing jabs, landing 1-2s, leg kicks, body kicks at range. Pretty overall uneventful beginning portion of round number 1. Then Andre Muniz timed the takedown very, very well. Landed a few ground and pound shots. And that was pretty much it. Won the round fairly comfortably. Round 2, a little bit of the same thing. Muniz got a takedown. Paul Craig got a takedown. There were some reversals and things like that. And then Paul Craig, once the little headbutt situation happened, they got back up on the feet. At that point, Paul Craig was like, I need another takedown. I need to finish this fight on the ground. Muniz comes forward with strikes. Craig times a beautiful, beautiful double leg. Lands it on Andre Muniz. And Andre does almost a reversal on Paul Craig. But Paul Craig rolls out of the situation into side control. Starts ground and pounding away. Looks for that Darce choke, which was really close at one point. Ground and pound, ground and pound, ground and pound. Slides his way in the mount. And he ends up finishing it with ground and pound in round number 2. And again, Paul Craig is an absolute beast of the UFC light heavyweight division. I mean, off the top of my head, the man is beating guys like number 5, Nikita Krylov, number 2, Magomed Ankalaev, and the champ, Jamal freaking Hill, and so many other guys that have been inside the top 15 at light heavyweight. Now we just finished number 14, and is going to be ranked in 2 weight classes simultaneously, probably like number 13, and then still at number 9 in the light heavyweight division. And no, we're not going to give him some unranked dude in the middleweight division. He's proven he's a legit contender now in the 185-pound weight class, and a lot of people are saying Brendan Allen, because Nasruddin has a fight, Kelvin has a fight, Roman Delije already said he had a fight scheduled, so a lot of people are saying, let's give him Brendan Allen. That would make a lot of sense. Both very good guys coming off wins against Andre Muniz, and for Brendan Allen also coming off that win on Bruno Silva. Brendan Allen was no part of anyone ranked below him. He was offered Roman Delije and said no because he believes he can get a top 5 guy like Marvin Vettori or Jared Cannonier. So I don't believe we're going to get a Brendan Allen fight with Paul Craig, but I do believe we get another wrestler and grappler type of guy in that weight class in Jack Hermanson. I say co-main events of a UFC fight night to really kind of figure out who is that legit grappler in the middleweight division. There is Brendan Allen, but this will kind of separate it even more to have Brendan Allen and one of these guys as the grappler of the UFC middleweight division. This will get him a shot, I believe, in the top 10, right? Jack Hermanson is at number 10, so this would get him inside of the top 10 of the middleweight division, putting him right in a situation where maybe he can get a Jared Cannonier or Marvin Vettori after that and relatively be close to a title fight. He wins that one and he wins 2 or 3 more. It is not that unlikely that he could not get a title fight with Israel Adesanya. I like that step up. Jack Hermanson taking on Paul Craig. And for Andre Muniz, again, coming off that loss, let's give him an up-and-comer now. I mean, he just lost to Paul Craig and Brendan Allen, who are ranked. We're not going to give him another ranked guy. We got 2 guys fighting in November in Caio Borralho and Nursultan Ruziboyev. Andre Muniz took a lot of damage in this fight. A lot of ground and pound from Paul Craig. So let's give him a little bit of a layoff, and Caio Borralho goes out there and wins against Nursultan Ruziboyev by submission. Maybe Nursultan goes out there and knocks out Caio Borralho. Either way, the winner of that one for sure deserves a fight inside of the top 15. So, you know, I would probably do that fight. Winner of these 2 versus Andre Muniz on the main card of a UFC fight night. Makes some sense to me. Faresiam taking on Jai Herbert. I mean, what do you want me to say about this one? The reaction is, wow, what a fun fight. Let's move on. Yeah, I mean, it was one of those technical striking fights where they mixed in some clinch work, a few takedowns here and there. Not really the most exciting fight ever. I'm just going to give you the matchups I think should happen next, because there's really not a lot to talk about with that fight. I would do Faresiam versus Michael Johnson. He's 26 years old. You got to give him a test at this point. As he is on a 2-fight win streak, beating Mike Figlak and Jai Herbert, Luigi Vendramini, Jamie Malarkey, only losing a Don Madge and Terrence McKinney. I believe he deserves that step up again. And maybe you can schedule Faresiam versus Michael Johnson for UFC Paris. Sounds like an okay fight to me. We'll move on. Jai Herbert, yeah, at this point, we got to give him the up-and-comers. And I know a lot of people were saying that Francisco Prado was moving up to the welterweight division. That's a lot of people had that sentiment in the comment section. I don't think he should. I really don't think he should. He looked good in that last fight against Atman Azaitar, knocked him out. Why is he going to move up to the welterweight division? I still believe he can do good things down here in the lightweight division. So I don't know if that's an official thing or if that's something he was just contemplating. But I'd love to see Jai Herbert, Francisco Prado on the prelims of a UFC pay-per-view. It sounds like a lot of fun. Put it on UFC 295 with Leon Edwards on the card, because Jai Herbert is a training partner of Leon Edwards. Why not? It does make sense in my opinion. I don't know why Prado wants to move up to welterweight. I'm hoping that's not what he does, because I do like this fight in the UFC's lightweight division. Then we got Lerone Murphy and Josh Culibao in the featherweight division. I mean, pure domination, honestly. Lerone was able to out-wrestle him, out-grapple him, out-ground and pound him. He had his back at one point, was getting close to some rear naked chokes. He was kind of beating Josh Culibao everywhere in that fight, and showed himself as 100% top 15 level. I mean, he was able to drop him in round number 3, 2 takedowns in round 3, 1 takedown in round 2, half a round of control time, and 3 minutes 46 seconds of control time in round 3 as well. And even the round that he was not able to get the takedown, he was still able to outstrike him and even get a 10-8 in the final round right there. If that doesn't scream Lerone Murphy deserves a top 15 fight, I don't know what does. Lerone Murphy right now is in his prime, 32 years old, beating Makhmud, Gabriel Santos, Josh Culibao, and so many other guys in the featherweight division. It's so hard to deny this man a spot inside of the top 15 of the featherweight division. So obviously, come on guys, obviously we're giving him a top 15 guy. Edson Barboza. Edson freaking Barboza. Ladies and gentlemen, I love this fight. I love this fight. Diakiese's already got some wins on some unranked guys. Alex Caceres is the same thing. And I know Edson Barboza is also the same thing. But it was only one win on Billy Quarantillo. And there's not a lot of wiggle room right now for Barboza, considering he already lost to the guys right above him in Bryce Mitchell and Diakiese. You can't really do a Sadiq Yusuf fight because he's on a crazy win streak. Why would he go back down in the rankings? So what are you going to give Edson Barboza in the top 15? There's not many options for Edson Barboza. Maybe number 14 versus number 15, but there's no movement there. Let's give Lerone Murphy his shot and do Lerone Murphy, Edson Barboza, UFC Sao Paulo, Brazil, co-main event, maybe just a regular old main card fight. I love it. I love it. I love it indeed. I do love it indeed. Josh Culibao, an opponent for him. Let's see if we could get to it. It is Steve Garcia. He's coming off that loss to Lerone Murphy, who was on a good win streak before that loss. Shailan Danbiek Sungwoo Choi, and was able to finish Melsik Baghdasaryan. But he needs a winnable fight now, and a fight that'd be really, really good for UFC 293, because he didn't take like a crazy amount of damage in this fight. He very well could go back on to UFC 293. He's an Australian. I'm sure he'd love to be on that card. David Onama, is a good fight. That's one of those that I was considering. But Steve Garcia, he's kill or be killed in this featherweight division. And in that UFC 293 crowd, they would go wild for a Josh Culibao Steve Garcia fight. It is pretty close. It's winnable for both guys. A very good striking match. Some takedowns mixed in. I think this is really, really fun. I think this is a very, very fun fight to be made in the featherweight division. Culibao and Steve Garcia, why not? Let's do it. UFC 293. We go on to the prelims with Daniel Marcos, who I believe got a robbery win. I don't believe he won that fight. I'll say that right now. I do not believe that Daniel Marcos won that fight. I'm going to go on to the second channel, or the second account right here, to show you Daniel Marcos' opponent. I don't believe he won that fight against Davey Grant, but even though we got a little bit of a robbery win, we still got to give him a top 15 fight. I mean, winning against a guy like Davey Grant by split decision is still really, really impressive. Because, well, guess what? Adrian Yanez did the exact same thing. He did the exact same thing as a top 15 guy. And there's a lot of guys in that top 15 better coming off losses, including Chris Gutierrez, Adrian Yanez, Ricky Simone. I don't know, Pedro's coming off the Chris Gutierrez one. Dominic Cruz is coming off a loss, but we're not giving him a huge step up. We just want to see where Chris Gutierrez is at after getting outstruck in his last fight. He was beating a lot of unranked level type guys. And let's see and prove if Chris Gutierrez truly is top 15 material with a Daniel Marcos fight. They're both technical kicking guys in the bantamweight division. I think it does make a lot of sense. Again, I forgot to give the results and reaction for the fight, but round number one, very technical striking fight. Back and forth. Davey was landing a lot more shots to the body than Daniel, landing a little bit more shots on the face. Neither guy was really landing much power on the feet. But Daniel Marcos was most definitely landing more volume than Daniel Marcos in round one. I thought it was very clear that Davey Grant won the first round. Round two, Davey Grant was still landing more volume, good knees, good leg kicks, good teeps to the body, front kicks and things like that. Still was landing a lot more volume than Daniel Marcos, but Daniel was able to cut open Davey Grant on the feet, and that's the main reason he was able to win that round. Round number three, Davey Grant destroyed Daniel Marcos on the feet. He was landing kicks to the body, leg kicks, huge knees, elbows, punches. It was a pure easy round for Davey Grant in round three, landing about double the significant strikes in that final round. That was very clear. Round one and round three should have gone to Davey. Round two was a pick'em. Could have gone either way because Davey landed a lot more volume. But Daniel Marcos did have the cut. I still think Davey Grant did enough to win that fight. But yeah, at this point, we're gonna have to go to give Davey Grant another prospect, another up and coming undefeated guy, and that guy is Javid Basharat. Javid, I don't think has deserved a top 15 guy as of yet, as he hasn't really beaten anyone really close to the top 15. Davey Grant is that guy. You beat Davey Grant, you're getting inside of that top 15, and I'd love to see Javid inside of the top 15. So let's do Javid Basharat versus Davey Grant, UFC 294 prelims. I think that does make a lot of sense. Next one that we got, Johnny Parsons and Danny Roberts, round one. Very close striking match. Danny was landing a little bit more volume, but Parsons was landing some good shots on the feet. And then round two, Johnny landed the takedown, ground and pounded a little. Danny got back up to the feet, but he was looking wavered and tired and slow. And that's where Johnny just kept on landing on the chin of Danny Roberts, hurt him bad, dropped him, and then dropped him again, and then hurt him more, and then ground and pounded him. And with like 1, 2, 3 seconds left, boom, the ref had to step in. It was a banger of a fight. It was fight of the night, according to the UFC, but I don't believe it should have been. Let's give him another winnable fight. He didn't take a whole lot of damage there at UFC 293. He did, for some reason, call out Paddy Pimblett. No, we're not doing that. Let's give him Andre Fialho. He's coming off a big losing streak as of right now. And if Andre wins this one in enemy territory against Johnny Parsons, all right. you could stay in the UFC a little bit longer, but if Johnny Parsons goes out there and wins, we're going to have to cut Andre Fialho at that point. My prediction would obviously be a Johnny Parsons TKO. Very winnable fight for the fans. UFC 293. I think it makes a lot of sense for him. And for the loser and Danny Roberts, we're going to have to give him an up-and-comer again. But we're going to have to go low on that one. Not an undefeated rising prospect this time. Like he had Della Medellina. Then he had another Australian guy with crazy power and sluggernaut instincts. Let's give him another fight. That's a tough test for him for sure in Gilbert Urbina. But a winnable fight for sure. Like Danny Roberts could 100% go out there and be able to outstrike Gilbert Urbina on the feet. I would like it. I think it makes sense. Gilbert Urbina versus Danny Roberts on the prelims of a UFC fight night. Then we have Joel Alvarez and Marc Diakiese. I do believe Joel deserves a top 15 guy now in the UFC lightweight division. Round number 1 for this fight was very, very close. I mean, I believe Marc landed a takedown at the end of the round, but the striking was very, very even. Joel was able to land some of the harder shots in round 1. Marc was able to land some kicks at range. And then round 2, it was a really weird situation where Joel got a takedown, got a reversal or something like that, landed some good ground and pound. Marc got back up to the feet, and when that happened, there was a headbutt that Joel Alvarez landed on Marc Diakiese. Everyone was kind of confused. Marc was like, oh my gosh, this headbutt hurts. And Joel just started swinging for the fences after that. Got that front headlock position and just cinched up the Darce choke submission. I don't think that's what it was officially called. I think they said it was like a head and arm. But nonetheless, another finish for Joel Alvarez, who's beaten Thiago Moises, Marc Diakiese now, and pretty much everyone by finish in round number 1 or round number 2, only losing to Damir Ismagulov and Arman Tsarukyan. I do believe he's still ranked level in the UFC's lightweight division. If you look at the rankings right now, Matt Frivola is going to move up to number 14. Joel Alvarez could easily move up to number 15 after Damir Ismagulov is no longer inside of the UFC. So I think Joel enters at number 15. And I think you got to schedule a Jalen Turner fight. Jalen did take some damage in that last fight. So did Joel in this one as well. So maybe one of those pay-per-views, UFC 295, UFC 296. This could be a main prelim, a feature prelim between Jalen Turner and Joel Alvarez. The 6'3" versus the 6'3" sounds like a lot of fun in the lightweight division to me. And for the loser in terms of Marc Diakiese, we are going to have to do a Chris Duncan fight. They were both on the same card. Marc is coming off a loss to Joel Alvarez. It was a weird one because of the headbutt situation. But the thing is, he is 2-4 in his last 6 fights, losing to legit guys. Michael Johnson, Joel Alvarez, Rafael Alves, Rafael Fiziev, beating Vyacheslav Borshev, which was a really, really good win. But after losing these two to guys that are kind of near that top 15 range, let's give him an up-and-comer that's on a good win streak at lightweight in Chris Duncan. It's a competitive fight, a winnable fight for both men, and a good fight. It's not a bad fight by any means. Chris Duncan versus Marc Diakiese, both guys that have fallen in love with their wrestling recently. Could be a good striking match between these two. The next one that we do have, if I can find it, Mick Parkin and Jamal Pogues. Mick Parkin pretty much is outstriking Jamal Pogues on the feet and landing more volume. Very boring heavyweight matchup there. Neither guy was really going for the finish. They were kind of point fighting for 3 straight rounds, but Parkin showed good speed, good composure, good veteran instincts, and was able to just ultimately outstrike him for 3 straight rounds. And his past 2 fights have been not really the most exciting ones. Got a good decision win, all right. Got a good finish on the Contender Series, but I want to give him a test. Walt Harris just had like a USADA situation in his return to Josh Parisian. I do believe he's going to be out for a little bit. Mick Parkin took a while from that Contender Series fight to this fight. It was a long break in between there. So why not end of 2023 if Walt Harris is done with his little USADA situation, or beginning of 2024, we can schedule this one. It's a good test for Mick Parkin, and if Walt Harris can come back and knock out an undefeated up-and-coming heavyweight, that'll put him right back into the mix of things. I believe that would be a pretty solid fight to be made. And for Jamal Pogues, the Josh Parisian one, I don't think he's that good. And in this fight, it also showed that, well, Jamal Pogues is really not that good. So I kind of say let's give him a guy coming off the Contender Series. We got the Ultimate Fighter alum, Chandler Cole, who had a crazy spinning wheel kick on the Ultimate Fighter. Lost to Zach Paunga, I believe. No. He landed that wheel kick and still lost that fight. I'm forgetting the name. But he's taking on LFA champ Thomas Peterson inside of the Contender Series in a few weeks' time. I believe the winner of that one should fight a low-level heavyweight, and a low-level heavyweight would 100% be Jamal Pogues. Let's do that on the prelims of a UFC fight night. What are we on? Makhmud Muradov taking on Bryan Barberena. Pretty boring fight, except for the fact that round number 3 was pretty fun, where Makhmud was pressuring forward, landing some good shots and landing some ground and pound, knocking down Bryan Barberena. But we were really getting Makhmud Muradov in the early rounds there, just trying to wrestle and control, not really looking for the finish on the ground, just looking for control time. And I don't know, I was kind of trying to think of a fight for Makhmud Muradov, and it did take me a while, but this one was booked a while ago. Abus Magomedov versus Makhmud Muradov in the UFC's middleweight division. Abus just lost pretty dominantly to Sean Strickland in round number 2. We got to give him an unranked guy. We're not getting him back in the rankings. We got to build his way back up to the UFC middleweight top 15. And I think a Makhmud Muradov fight for Abus is still winnable fight. He was just in a main event, so I believe Makhmud would take it now that the name is there for Abus Magomedov. Put it on the main card of a UFC fight night. I do believe it'd be a pretty decent one. Not a horrible fight, not a very, very good fight, just an okay one there for Abus and Makhmud Muradov. And for the loser there, in terms of Bryan Barberena, I'm going to give him a veteran. Let's bring him back down to the welterweight division. He had no success up at 185 pounds. Let's give him a veteran. Tim Means is one of those guys that is on a losing streak like Bryan Barberena, and I think a fight between them two would kind of figure out who that gatekeeper of the top 30, top 40 of the welterweight division is. If you got a good up-and-comer in the welterweight division, you feed them through Bryan Barberena and Tim Means to really see if they're legit. I think that's what they should do. With that, we do have, after that one, we only got 4 more. Ketlen Viera, we're going to do a rematch with her. It was a pretty, wrestling heavy, just outstriking her at range, point fighting type of decision win for Ketlen Viera on Pannie Kianzad. We are going to have to give her a rematch here, because right now, UFC bantamweight rankings, she's at number 4. She's not getting Mayra Bueno Silva. She's not getting a Raquel Pennington rematch. And she's not getting Juliana Pena or Holly Holm. But Irene Aldana has beaten Ketlen Viera in the past. And are you going to give Ketlen someone way down in the rankings like Norma Damont coming up? You could do that for UFC Sao Paulo, Brazil. But I'd personally rather do Ketlen Viera, Irene Aldana, main card of... you could legitimately do that on the main card of the UFC Mexico card that's coming up with Valentina Shevchenko and Alexa Grasso. You could put it on there, or you could put it on the main card of UFC Sao Paulo, because Ketlen Viera is from Brazil and Aldana is from Mexico. You can do either one of those cards. A rematch there should be really, really fun, in my opinion. I don't think that's a horrible fight by any means. Just whatever you do. I know it's number 4 versus number 6. They've done it in the past where they had like number 10 versus number 5 as a UFC Fight Night main event. Please, dear God, do not do Ketlen Viera, Irene Aldana as a 5-round fight. I will smack someone. So 3 rounds on the main card of one of those 2 UFC Fight Nights makes a lot of sense. And for Pannie Kianzad, we're also going to do a rematch. I don't know what it is with rematches for me today, but Pannie is coming off a loss to Ketlen Viera. She's not going to go up in the rankings. Yana Santos is coming off a loss. I know Macy Chiasson is also coming off a loss, but it's the number 6, Irene Aldana, in a fight she was actually winning. There's not too many fights between these girls down here in the bantamweight division to get inside of that top 10. Not a lot of them are being very active in the women's bantamweight division, so let's do another rematch. Macy Chiasson taking on Pannie Kianzad. Maybe prelims. I don't know. This is one. It depends on how good the UFC fight night is. If it's a horrible UFC fight night, you could maybe argue it's a main card level fight. But if it's an above average one, put it on the prelims. We don't need to see it on the main card. Macy Chiasson, Pannie Kianzad. The next one, we already did Chris Duncan versus Marc Diakiese from above the card. So we'll do Yanal Ashmouz now. Yanal, I want bangers now, alright? Yanal Ashmouz lost. He's 1-1 in the UFC. Just lost his first ever fight in the UFC. Who also just lost a fight inside of the UFC? Who just lost there? Oh, Trevor Peek, 2 UFC lightweights, previously undefeated, that just lost decisions to Chris Duncan and Chepe Mariscal. Both guys are very exciting, very powerful, and put on really, really good shows every single time they go out there. I love it. I love it, ladies and gentlemen. Let's do it, boys. Trevor Peek and Yanal Ashmouz. Let's do it as the feature prelim of a UFC fight night to get people hyped for the main card. I love it. Bruna Brasil and Shauna Bannon. I'll be honest, I didn't watch the fight. I'm gonna be dead serious. I did not watch this fight, but I will say who I believe that Bruna Brasil should get next is Piero Rodriguez, who's coming off a loss. In her last one at Jillian Robertson, Bruna did lose to a really good girl in Denise Gomez. So let's filter out the women's MMA, women's divisions right here and do Piero Rodriguez versus Bruna Brasil, UFC Sao Paulo, or the prelims of any random UFC fight night. It could make some sense, you know. It's not a very, very good fight, but there's not much you can do there, especially with the women's MMA. And for Shauna Bannon, I was just trying to find the worst fighter I could on the biggest losing streak I could for Shauna Bannon to find a way to get a win inside of the UFC, and I stumbled across Estela Nunes, who is coming off that injury in her last fight, but they popped it right back into place. She is good to go. She's still on the UFC roster, even though she's 0-4 inside of the UFC. I don't care. I mean, they're both not UFC caliber. In my opinion, stick them on the prelims of any UFC fight night. If Estela wins, cool. We'll set you with an undefeated girl coming off the Contender Series. If Shauna Bannon wins, we'll find another girl on a crazy losing streak to build back up the name of Shauna Bannon and put her on the Irish UFC card. That is going to happen in 2024, but we got to build her up after that loss to Bruna Brasil. Let's give her Estela Nunes. And last fight, Jafel, Filho, and Daniel Barez, banger. For as long as it lasted. Daniel Barez able to land some huge shots to the body on Jafel and drop him. But then as he was landing some shots, Jafel level changed, got the takedown, and easily cinched up an arm triangle in round number 1. Another good grappler, jiu-jitsu guys, got some solid striking as well, and is a good test for anyone in the flyweight division is Charles Johnson. If you want to see if you're legit in the flyweight division, you go through Charles Johnson. He's kind of that gatekeeper guy as of right now. And Jafel, I mean, he had a really close fight with Muhammad Mokaev. I mean, you know, he could be top 15 level. I don't know what that was that I just did there, but he could be top 15 level in the in the flyweight division right there. With that close of a fight with Muhammad Mokaev, I could very well see him going out there having success with guys like Tygirol Bekov, David Dvorak, Suma Derji, Tim Elliott, things like that. But we got to give him 1 or 2 more fights outside of the top 15. And the first step would 100% be a Charles Johnson fight. Daniel Barez, I'm assuming the UFC didn't just give him a one-fight contract to the UFC. And let's set up bangers. He's not going to be a future champion or anything. Neither is CJ Vergara or Vinicius Salvador. All three of these men are just in there for fight of the night. Banger fights to open up some prelims on UFC fight nights or pay-per-views. Let's do it. They're fighting very, very soon, I believe, at UFC 291, so they'll have similar schedules. I think CJ Vergara wins that one. And then Vinicius Salvador versus Daniel Barez. UFC Sao Paulo, maybe, I don't know. Prelims of any UFC fight night, it's a banger. Vinicius Salvador, Daniel Barez is an amazing striking match. CJ Vergara, Daniel Barez is an amazing striking match. Those are the fights that I think should happen next. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe. What do you think about UFC Fight Night? Aspinall, Tybura. Thoughts down below. We'll see you in the next one. Fair Life Chocolate Milk.